Picture this, you've just landed in Lisbon or arrived at the train station and 10 minutes later you're standing there, fingers covered in sugar and cinnamon, biting into your first still warm pastel de nata. In this video we're not talking viewpoints or yellow streetcars, we are here to eat Lisbon. If you watched our Barcelona food video, this is the Lisbon version. We're chasing the flavors locals have been perfecting for generations, and we are running away from the tourist traps that are taking over big chunks of central Lisbon. By the end, you will know exactly what to order, from Bifanas and grilled sardines to all the different ways the Portuguese manage to cook codfish, plus of course the famous custard tarts. So if you've got a trip to Lisbon coming up, save this video, and if you're already here, grab a coffee and a snack and let's dive in. Hola, ¿qué tal? Welcome to a channel made by two humans who live in Spain and visit Portugal often. We do so you don't have to do it blindly. Some of the flavors we're going to talk about today were born and bred here in Lisbon, while others come from different parts of Portugal but are super common in the city too. Anyway, with that in mind, here's our list in alphabetical order of some local traditions you can still enjoy in Lisbon today. And stick around until the end because we are finishing the video with something slightly different, a guide to ordering coffee in Lisbon, which sounds simple until you are actually standing at a counter trying to figure out the difference between a garoto and a galão. Ameijoas a Bulhão Pato is one of those deceptively simple dishes where the magic is all in the sauce and the timing. It starts with the freshest clams you can get your hands on. In a big pot, a generous amount of garlic is gently fried in olive oil until it smells amazing, and then in go the clams. A splash of lemon juice and lots of fresh cilantro, and you let everything cook just until the clams open up. As they steam, they release their natural salty juices, which mix with the garlic, olive oil and herbs to create this ridiculously good, almost drinkable sauce. The name of the dish is a tribute to a 19th century Portuguese poet, Raimundo António de Bulhão Pato. Arroz de marisco is one of the most classic Portuguese comfort dishes, and it's a must try if you love seafood. Think of it as a broady, soupy rice packed with flavor. The base is a rich seafood stock, usually built slowly with shrimp heads, fish bones and aromatics, so the rice absorbs every bit of flavor. Then come the stars of the show: clams, shrimp, mussels, cockles, and whatever fresh seafood is best that day. The rice is cooked until it's tender but still has a bit of bite, swimming in a thick tomato-based broth. It's normally brought to the table still in the pot, to be shared family style. This isn't a fancy plating dish. It's messy, generous, and all about that deep seafood flavor. Arroz de pato duck rice is a traditional Portuguese dish that's all about slow cooking and big flavors. It starts with duck, simmered for hours in a pot with onions, carrots, garlic, bay leaves, black peppercorns, and whole chouriço sausage until the meat is fall off the bone tender. The rice then gets cooked right in that rich duck broth, absorbing all the smoky, savory goodness from the chorizo and duck fat. Once everything's mixed, it goes into the oven to bake until the top gets that golden crispy crust. Arroz de tamboril, monkfish rice, takes that same broady rice concept from arroz de marisco but swaps the mixed seafood party for one superstar, monkfish. If you've never had monkfish, It's this meaty, firm white fish that doesn't fall apart. Perfect for a rice dish where you want big chunks that hold up in the broth. Locals start with a seafood stock made from monkish bones and heads. The rice goes in and cooks low and slow until it's plump and infused, with tender monkish pieces stirred through at the end so they stay juicy. Rice is one of those ingredients that runs quietly through a huge part of Lisbon's food culture. The three dishes we just talked about are only the beginning. Wherever you look on a traditional menu, rice keeps showing up, with octopus, with rabbit, with pork, with whatever the kitchen felt like celebrating that day. One thing worth saying out loud though: if you are tempted to order paella in Lisbon, don't. Paella is a Spanish dish and it has nothing to do with the Portuguese food culture. Give the local rice dishes the chance they deserve. And now we get to the most important part of this video, because we need to talk about bacalhau, salted dried codfish. No description will ever fully do justice to how deep this fish runs in Portuguese culture. It's not just food, it's identity. One way to at least start to understand how a fish pulled from the cold waters of the North Atlantic ended up at the heart of everything Portuguese, their history, their economy, their family tables, is to visit the interpretative center of the history of God in Lisbon, which we covered in our Lisbon Top 50 video. Bacalhau is everywhere, on the streets, in the markets, in the supermarkets, stacked in huge dried slabs, in popular sayings, in old paintings. You've probably heard the saying that there are as many bacalhau recipes as there are days in the year. Some Portuguese will tell there are even more than 365 recipes at least. And honestly, after decades visiting Portugal, we are starting to believe it. We've had it baked, fried, shredded, slow cooked, mixed with eggs and potatoes, served cold in salads, and turned into fritters you eat standing up on a street corner. Here are some of the most popular ways you will find bacalhau in Lisbon. Out of all the bacalhau recipes out there, there's one that was invented right here in Lisbon that we want to highlight first, and it's probably the most universally loved of them all. Bacalhau à brás is everything you want from Portuguese food in one pan. Shredded salted cod, crispy shoestring fried potatoes, softly scrambled eggs, onions, and a handful of black olives and fresh parsley on top to finish. Simple ingredients, zero fuss, completely addictive. The key is the texture contrast. The cod is soft and flaky, the eggs are just barely set, still creamy, not dry, and those shoestring potatoes stay crisp enough to give you a little crunch in every bite. Get it wrong and it's just scrambled eggs with fish. Get it right and it's something you will be thinking about on the plane home. Bacalhau con natas is another classic and one of our personal favorites on this whole list. It's a baked dish layered with onions, potatoes and cream, and it comes out of the oven golden and bubbling with that slightly crispy top that you fight over at the table. The prawns you see in the image aren't part of the traditional recipe, but they are always a welcome addition. It's richer and more indulgent than bacalhau à brás, closer in spirit to a gratin. The cream wraps around the shredded cod and softened potatoes, and everything melts together into something deeply savory and comforting. We've just looked at two of the most iconic bacalhau dishes you will find in Lisbon, but that's really only the beginning. Just like rice shows up in all kinds of forms, codfish does too, and part of the fun is discovering which version becomes your favorite. Whether it's part of a more elaborate preparation or just served with boiled potatoes and olives, there is always a bacalhau dish that's bound to please you. We'll circle back to Bacalhau in a moment because there are still a couple of cod-based snacks we need to talk about. But for now, let's move on. If there's one street food that truly belongs to Lisbon, it's the Bifana. And it's gloriously simple. A soft, slightly crusty bread roll filled with thin slices of pork that have been marinated in garlic, white wine and spices. That's it. No fancy toppings, no layers of stuff piled on. Just good pork, good bread and a marinade that does all the work. The bread soaks up all those garlicky, winey juices from the meat, and what you end up with is messy, satisfying, and completely addictive. Bifanas are fast food in the truest, most honest sense of the word. They are cheap, they are everywhere, and they are one of those things you will probably end up eating more than once without meaning to. First one, as a snack. Second one, because you walked past the smell again and just couldn't help it. Caldo verde, literally green broth, is probably the most famous soup in all of Portugal and one of those dishes that earns its reputation completely. It's simply comforting and deeply satisfying in the way that only truly old recipes can be. The base is a smooth potato and onion broth into which thin ribbons of couve, a dark, slightly bitter Portuguese kale, are stirred at the end, keeping just enough texture to give the soup its character. A few slices of chouriço sausage float on top, adding a smoky punch, and the whole thing gets finished with a generous drizzle of good olive oil. That olive oil isn't optional, it's what ties everything together. Traditionally, caldo verde is a dish from the north of Portugal where that type of kale grows abundantly, but it's become so beloved across the whole country that you will find it in everywhere in Lisbon too. A culinary tip now for anyone visiting Lisbon in the fall or winter. Yes, coming to Lisbon in November or December means bringing a jacket and being ready for some cold grey days, but the city has a reward waiting for you that you simply will not find at any other time of the year: freshly roasted chestnuts straight off the street. There is something magical about turning a corner in Lisbon on a cold afternoon and seeing that plume of smoke rising above the rooftops before you've even spotted the vendor. The smell hits you first, warm, smoky, slightly sweet, and your feet just start walking toward it on their own. The vendors set up their carts on street corners all over the city, roasting the chestnuts right there on the spot. You order a dozen, they scoop them into a little paper cone, and you stand there peeling them with your fingers while they are still too hot to handle, not caring even slightly. I am a pretty fast eater, and there isn't a single time I don't end up burning my fingers, but that's part of it. That little burn, that cold air, that smell of smoke on your coat, that is Lisbon in winter. We have roasted chestnuts in Spain too, and we love them as well, but we'll be honest, there's something about the Portuguese ones that hits differently. Maybe it's the variety, maybe it's the way they are roasted, or maybe it's just the Lisbon air. Whatever it is, we haven't found anything quite like them anywhere else. If you are there in season, don't walk past that smoke. Grilled chicken might sound like the most universal thing in the world, but the Portuguese version has one ingredient that sets it completely apart: piri-piri sauce. And the story behind that sauce is fascinating. It starts in the 15th century when Portuguese explorers brought chili peppers from South America to their colonies in southern Africa. Local cooks got hold of those peppers and turned them into something extraordinary: a fiery sauce made with chilies, garlic, olive oil, and red wine vinegar. And when Mozambique gained independence in 1975 and waves of Portuguese colonists returned home, they brought the sauce with them. So, what you are eating when you order Frango piri-piri in Lisbon is, in a way, a dish that traveled from South America to Africa to Portugal over the course of 5 centuries. The chicken itself is typically spatch cooked, split flat, and grilled over charcoal and with lots of piri-piri sauce as it cooks until the skin is crispy and slightly charred at the edges. The heat level changes. Some versions will just warm you up nicely, others will make your eyes water. Iscas con elas is one of those dishes that is as Lisbon as it gets, and yet one of the hardest to actually find. Iscas are thin slices of marinated pork or beef liver, pan-fried and served with elas, which literally just means them in Portuguese, referring to the boiled potato slices that come alongside. It's a humble, no-frills plate, but that's exactly the problem. Restaurants catering to tourists have quietly dropped it from their menus in favor of pricier, more photogenic options. We had a hard time tracking it down on our visits, which tells you everything about the state of central Lisbon's food scene right now. If you spot it on a menu and you are feeling adventurous, order it. It means you've probably found a place that's still cooking for locals. Here on the team, I am a big fan of them, while Cecilia prefers to keep her distance. Pão con chouriço isn't a Lisbon invention, it's a beloved tradition from the Alentejo region that has spread to every corner of Portugal. But you will find it all over Lisbon, and it's absolutely worth talking about because it's one of those snacks you notice the second it hits the air. It's exactly what it sounds like, a bread roll baked with sliced chouriço sausage tucked inside. The bread is soft and slightly chewy, the chorizo is smoky and fatty, and as it bakes, all those oils from the sausage seep into the dough. The result is warm, rich, and deeply savory in the best possible way. It's a popular late-night snack after a long evening out, a quick lunch on the go, or just something you pick up because you walked past a bakery and the smell made the decision for you. We told you earlier we would come back to Bacalhau, and here we are, because you simply cannot talk about Lisbon food without dedicating a proper moment to Pastel de Bacalhau, one of the most iconic little bites in the whole country. The recipe is straightforward: shredded salt cod mixed with mashed potato, onion, garlic, eggs, and seasoning, shaped by hand into small oval patties and fried in hot oil until they are golden and crispy on the outside and soft and creamy on the inside. That contrast of textures is everything. A pastel de bacalhau downright has a thin, crunchy shell that gives way to a warm, fluffy, deeply savory center that tastes like the sea in the best possible way. They are endlessly versatile too. Order them as a petisco, a Portuguese snack, somewhere between a tapa and an appetizer, at a bar with a cold beer, or as a starter at a sit-down restaurant. Either way, they disappear fast. We've never once managed to eat just the one. Next up, Pataniscas, another fried codfish classic with a strong specific association with Lisbon. If pastéis de bacalhau are the oval-shaped potato-based fritters we just talked about, Pataniscas are their flatter, butter-based cousin. The recipe uses a wheat flour batter mixed with eggs, finely chopped onion, fresh parsley, and shredded salt cod. Then dropped by the spoonful into hot oil and fried until golden and slightly crispy at the edges. The texture is different from pastéis, lighter, more like a fritter or a savory pancake, but the flavor is just as deep and satisfying. Like pastéis, they work perfectly as a petisco with a cold drink or as a starter before a bigger meal. Peixe grelhado, grilled fish, is one of the great pillars of Lisbon's food culture, and one of the things Portugal does better than almost anywhere else. It's a national passion. The beauty of peixe grelhado is in its simplicity. The fish is always fresh, always cooked over charcoal, and always treated with respect. A little sea salt, a drizzle of good olive oil, maybe a squeeze of lemon, that's it. No heavy sauces, no complicated techniques, just exceptional fish, grilled until the skin is slightly charred and the flesh inside is just barely cooked through. It takes many forms depending on the season and what came in that morning. The most famous are sardines, smoky, intensely flavored and deeply tied to Lisbon's identity, but equally beloved are carapaus or horse mackerel, a small, intensely flavored fish that locals adore and tourists often overlook completely. Then there's dorada, robalo, and many others depending on the day and the catch. It typically comes with a simple green salad and roasted or boiled potatoes on the side. Nothing flashy, nothing unnecessary. Next up is one of our absolute favorites on the entire list, and a dish with one of the most charming names in Portuguese food. Peixinhos da horta literally translates as little fish from the garden, because the green beans, once buttered and fried, look a little like small fish in the pan. We love that. It's a beautiful, simple dish, fresh green beans dipped in a light wheat flour butter, seasoned with salt, pepper, and sometimes a little garlic or parsley, then fried until golden and crispy. They are served hot, sometimes alongside a dipping sauce, and they work perfectly as a petisco, as a snack, something to pick at with a drink before the main event. Don't skip them. After the Peixinhos da horta, we're back to meat, and this is a proper Tasca classic, the kind of dish that's meant to sit in the middle of the table and be shared. Pica-pau de novilho, literally woodpecker beef, is the version people tend to rate most highly, made with little cubes of beef in a rich sauce. You will also see cheaper takes like pica-pau de porco with pork or pica-pau de frango with chicken, but the real soul of the dish is always the sauce, wine or beer, mustard, and a good hit of seasoning. Another seafood dish you will find all over Lisbon's restaurants is octopus, polvo, and its most celebrated preparation is polvo a lagareiro. The octopus is first boiled slowly until it becomes tender, then finished in the oven or on the grill. It's served with patatas a murro, which translates as punched potatoes. Small potatoes are boiled until just cooked, then literally punched or smashed to crack them open. The whole plate gets absolutely drenched in high-quality olive oil, scattered with garlic and fresh cilantro, and that's your dish. Porco a alentejana, pork alentejo style, is another preparation that wasn't born in Lisbon but that appears regularly on its menus, and it is one of those dishes that sounds like it shouldn't work on paper and then completely wins you over the first bite. It's pork and clams cooked together. Cubed pork loin is marinated overnight in white wine, garlic, paprika, and bay leaves, then pan-fried until golden and combined with fresh clams, which open up and release their briny juices into the sauce. Fried potatoes go in and a handful of fresh cilantro on top. And we finish our list of savory dishes with prego no pão, a Portuguese classic you will find in tascas, cafés and cervejarias all over the country. It's usually an affordable, no-frills kind of meal, nothing grand, just a juicy beef steak tucked into bread, simple, fast and very satisfying. Having dealt with some of our favorite savory flavors you will find in Lisbon, it is time to turn to the rich offerings you will find in confectionery shops all over the city. Portuguese pastry culture is deep, proud, and absolutely worth your calories. Here are some of our favorites. Bola de Berlim, Berlin's ball, is a round, fluffy, deep-fried dough ball rolled in sugar and filled with a generous dollop of creme di ovo, that thick golden egg custard that shows up everywhere in Portuguese pastry. You split it open from the side and the cream peeks out. You will find them in bakeries and pastry shops all over Lisbon, and they are especially popular at the beach during the summer months. These little rice flour muffins are everywhere. The recipe is almost absurdly simple. Rice flour, sugar, eggs, butter. And yet the result is something special. They are soft and slightly spongy with a delicate sweetness that doesn't overwhelm, and a thin, barely there crust on the top that gives just a little resistance before you sink into the fluffy interior. No filling, no frosting, no layers, just a quiet, honest little cake that somehow manages to be more satisfying than things 10 times more elaborate. For me, this is the holy grail of Portuguese desserts. I know that's a big statement on a list that includes pastéis de nata, but hear me out. Molotov is a baked pudding, egg whites whipped to stiff peaks with sugar, set in a caramel-lined mold and cooked slowly in a water bath until it holds its shape. When you turn it out, you get this trembling, impossibly light dome drenched in caramel sauce. It barely feels like food. It's like eating a warm, sweet cloud. Portuguese baking uses enormous quantities of egg yolks, and Molotov was a traditional way of using up all the leftover whites. The hard truth is that Molotov is not easy to find in Lisbon today. It's not a street food or a cafe snack. You'll find it as a dessert on the menu of a traditional restaurant or occasionally at a good pastry shop. But when you do find it, please order it. Don't leave Lisbon without trying one. The name alone should be enough to make you try it. Pão de Deus, literally bread of God, is a soft, slightly sweet bread roll topped with a generous layer of shredded coconut and sugar that bakes into a golden, slightly crispy crust. It's not complicated, it's not fancy, but it is delicious in the way only really good bread can be. You will find it at bakeries. And here we are, the most famous sweet in Lisbon, one of the most recognizable pastries in the world, and for good reason. We're talking about pastéis de nata. And if you haven't tried one yet, please stop whatever you are doing and fix that immediately. They are small individual custard tarts, a flaky, buttery puff pastry shell filled with a rich, creamy egg custard made with milk, sugar, lemon zest, cinnamon, and eggs, baked at very high heat until the top is blistered and caramelized in places. The standard finishing move is a dusting of powdered sugar and cinnamon on top, and yes, you should do it. Now, here's something worth knowing because it confuses a lot of visitors. Pastel de nata and pastel de Belém are, and at the same time are not, exactly the same thing, even though they look almost identical and taste very similar. The original recipe was created in the early 19th century in the Belém neighborhood at the bakery now known as Pastéis de Belém, which was inspired by the egg-based sweets that monks and nuns had been making in the nearby Jeronimus monastery for centuries. The recipe from that original bakery is a closely guarded secret, and only that specific shop is legally allowed to use the name Pastel de Belém. Every other version sold everywhere else in Lisbon and across Portugal is technically a pastel de nata. Is the difference noticeable? That's a debate every visitor to Lisbon ends up having. What we can tell you is that if you are visiting the Belém neighborhood anyway, and you should, it's one of the most historically rich parts of the city, the original bakery is an experience in itself. It's a huge space, always busy, and you can watch the pastries being made through a window into the kitchen, worth the queue. That said, Every pasteleria in Lisbon has its own recipe, and locals are deeply loyal to their favorites. Ours are from Manteigaria, which has several locations across the city, open kitchen, pastries coming out of the oven continuously, best eaten standing at the counter while they are still warm. But the best pastel de nata is always the one in your hand right now. Don't be fooled by the name, there is no meat anywhere near this one. Salami de chocolate is a no-bake sweet rolled into a log and dusted with powdered sugar until it looks convincingly like a cured sausage. You will see it sliced and displayed in practically every bakery and confectionery window in Lisbon, and it is one of those things that easy to walk past and then immediately regret not buying. It's rich, dense, slightly fudgy, and very Portuguese in the way it turns simple, humble ingredients into something people love. And to finish the meal, nothing beats a typically Lisbon digestive drink. Meet ginginha, a sweet, slightly tart liqueur made from ginger berries, a small fruit that looks and tastes like a sour cherry, steeped into aguardente, Portuguese brandy, with sugar and a hint of cinnamon. It comes in at around 20 degrees alcohol, and it's served in a tiny glass, usually with one or two of the actual berries sitting at the bottom. You drink the liqueur, then eat the fruit. That's the ritual. Ginginha has been made and drunk in Lisbon since the early 19th century, and the spiritual home of it is the Rocio area in the heart of the city, where 3 legendary no-frills ginginha parlors stand practically next to each other. Ginginha Espinheira, Ginginha Sem Rival, and Ginginha Ruby. Each one is tiny, barely more than a hatch in the wall. You walk up, order 1 or 2 glasses, drink them standing on the street, and carry on with your day. There are no chairs, no menus, no fuss. Just a glass, the street, and that deep cherry warmth spreading through you. Each of the 3 shops has its loyal followers, and each claims theirs is the best. Go try all 3 and make your own mind. That's half the fun. We had planned to finish the video here, but we stopped and thought, we make these videos to help you get the most of your trips. And when it comes to Lisbon, few things are more confusing than ordering coffee. It sounds simple until you are standing at a counter and the person behind is waiting. So here's a quick guide. If you just ask for a coffee in Lisbon, you will get a bica, a short, strong espresso. That's the default, the backbone of Lisbon's coffee culture. Drunk at counters all over the city at all hours of the day. Then it's the abatanado, a longer coffee made by adding more hot water to an espresso. It's similar to a long black or an americano, milder and less intense than a bica. Carioca is an interesting one. A carioca is made by running water through the same coffee grounds that were already used for a bica. The result is a weaker, gentler coffee, somewhere between an espresso and an americano, but with a slightly different, softer flavor profile. Pingado is a short espresso with just a drop, a pingo of milk added. It's equivalent to a cortado in Spain or an espresso macchiato. Takes the edge of the bitterness without turning it into a milk drink. Garoto is an espresso served in a regular cup with a more generous pour of milk or milk foam. Think of it as a bigger cortado, closer to a small flat white. More milk than pingado, less than a meia de leite. Y a meia de leite is half coffee, half milk, served in a medium cup, similar to a flat white or a small latte. Galão is the most visually distinctive of the lot, served in a tall glass with a long spoon. It's espresso topped with a large amount of foamed milk, more milk than coffee, which makes it mild and creamy, a kind of latte macchiato. So, to wrap up the coffee section, Which one should you order? The Bica, short and strong, the default choice for most locals. The abatanado, same coffee, more water, closer to what most visitors are used to. Carioca, lighter and milder, made by running water through already used grounds. Good if you just want something warm without the kick. Pingado, a Bica with just a drop of milk, barely changes the taste, but takes the edge off slightly. Garoto, more milk than a pingado served in a small cup, a gentle option if you are sensitive to strong coffee. Meia de leite, equal parts coffee and milk in a larger cup, the Portuguese version of a flat white. Galão, the milkiest of the lot, mostly foam and milk with a shot of coffee at the bottom. If you like lattes, this is your order. And while we're still in the subject of coffee, if our work has been useful to you and you want to say thanks, you can invite us to a virtual cup of coffee or become a channel member. Links in the first comment below the video. Either way, we are truly grateful. And that's our Lisbon food list. We hope it saves you from at least a few tourist traps and sends you straight to the good stuff. Whether that's a paper cone of roasted chestnuts on a winter afternoon or a plate of Peixinhos da horta with a cold beer. Or who knows, that first still warm pastel de nata of the trip. Having seen the list, there's something we would like to share with you. You know how Venice or Barcelona are always brought up as examples of the negative effects of tourism? For us, if there's one city where tourism has really changed everything, is Lisbon. The Lisbon we knew and visited for the first time in the 1980s and where we've been coming back. The Lisbon from the year 2000, the Lisbon from even 15 years ago is basically gone. Over-tourism has had a huge impact on the soul of the city, and today a lot of the central neighborhoods feel like they exist almost only for visitors. The local food culture has been a victim of that too. We've been researching this video for years now, coming back to Lisbon again and again, and when we asked our local friends where could we eat certain traditional dishes, the answer we got over and over was at my mother's. There you go. So many traditions are disappearing, replaced by a kind of safe international food made to please everyone and no one, and it makes us really sad to see it. Anyway, Lisbon is a city we know and love well, and we've made a lot of content to help you make the most of your time there. We are putting the full list of our Lisbon videos on the screen right now, everything from must-see places to the best day trips. So take a look and find whatever is most useful for your trip. We'll see you on the next video. Até mais!